it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
Tomo, you magnificent bastard, I read your book. I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch.
Captain.
Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain.
No, not yet. Not yet. Don't pass out on me yet.
Terrain. Pull up.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. Of course you realize this means war.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is Tuesday, September 8th, the year of our Lord 2020. I am BZ. And have we got a great show for you tonight? In the first hour, we have ERIC RIGARD, the GOP candidate for California Assembly in District 9. In the second hour, BZ and Sackhead SHAUN talk about coup. Not counting coup. What's going to happen after November? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled with a K, a mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast of the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento at 10th and L Streets, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense and its concomitant wail as it wafts in that putrefying edifice. And at the end of the show, when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, and palatial SHR Media Studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from downtown Sacramento. Be forewarned. What you're about to hear for the next 2 hours consists of my opinion and no one else's. Also, I want to remind you that because of what has gripped this nation, the saloon under California law is no longer open, but I'm still serving stiff drinks, facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, tradition, intent, and common sense out the back door. Also got to remind you about this. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the saloon, where the speech is free, but the booze is not. In the first hour, ERIC RIGARD. Guess what, folks? As opposed to last time that we met ERIC, he's not on the Taliola phone. Oh no. He is in the studio, so if you're looking right now, you can process the saloon in one of 3 ways. You can listen to the show at shrmedia.com on Spreaker. Now, if you go to shrmedia.com, quick like a bunny, you can also see that, oh gosh, we're streaming it live on YouTube. So this is nothing if not the era of choices. You can listen to it. I don't know if you have to balance your checkbook or clean your fish tank. Just listen to it. Or you can watch the show on the SHR Media YouTube channel or the SHR Media Facebook page. Everyone knows that BZ here in the saloon loves Facebook. Facebook and I are like this. We're really good friends. And if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. So for the first hour, we have ERIC RIGARD live in the studio for the 4th time. Let's see. Okay, good. Now, folks, you can see ERIC. Here he is. And that's his name if you want to vote for him. If you're watching on video, ERIC RIGARD, RIGARD. And he's running for California GOP candidate for California Assembly in District 9. When last I spoke with Eric, we were talking about something that didn't specifically deal with politics and what he's involved in doing right now. So first, welcome, Eric Rigard. It is great to see you back in the saloon, sir.
It's good to be back.
And you'll notice, folks, that there's no coverings on the face because here in the saloon, well, it's an option. You can wear it, but you can't really hear us very well. Now, when you're running for GOP candidate here in California of District 9 of the California Assembly, I'm going to remind people of this as I've done it before, but for those who may not have heard you before, District 9 encompasses a third of the city of Sacramento and its southern suburbs. It includes Elk Grove, Florin, Galt, the Parkway area. Then it goes south towards the city of Stockton, and it includes Lodi in San Joaquin County. That's a pretty big and significant chunk of land because, as I say, Sacramento, you are about to represent the people that are literally in the belly of the beast near the Bill Mill. You're right adjacent the Capitol building.
Right.
So these are pretty important folks that you're representing. Now, in the 9th Assembly District, the demographics skew like this. It's 34.4% white. There's a statistical minority, 12.7% black, 26.3% Latino, 22.2% Asian, 0.85% Native Americans, 1.45% Hawaiian or Pacific Islanders, and 0.27% others who refuse to state. Hey, they could be inhabitants of Zephyron for all we know. Politically speaking, however, this is interesting, and it's also illustrative of, I think, California itself. 46.18% of the folks in your district are Democrat. 26% are Republican. 22% have no party preference. Now, it doesn't say anything about independence. So essentially what I'm getting to in that, Eric Rigard, is that is a wide demographic group potentially that you're going to be representing. It's not leaning one way or another. There's a ton of people all over the spectrum, literally, in District 9.
Yeah, there definitely are. There definitely are. And you know, even within the, let's say within the Asian community, you've got Hmongs, Cambodians,
Yep.
Vietnamese. You got a bunch of different groups that don't necessarily vote alike or think alike. You know, within the Hispanic community, you have the same thing. And if people really looked at the black community, you have the same thing there. It is not monolithic.
No.
Everybody doesn't think the
Nope.
same way, talk the same way, do stuff the same way. You know, what I'm finding is, you know, within the district, people that I've spoken to, okay, there are a lot of people, longtime residents of Elk Grove, some, you know, and people who knew Jim Cooper, who was the incumbent from when he was a sheriff and the whole deal. They voted for him because they thought he was going to represent them one way.
And he does have some name recognition.
Has excellent name
Because on the sheriff's department, occasionally you would see, if given a particular given event, you would see his face and associate his name with the sheriff's department.
Exactly. But those same people, today I talk to them, and they want nothing to do with him because he has governed in such a far left way. You know, there are some police laws that are out there, some laws affecting law enforcement that he is, you know, he kind of comes down the middle of the road and he's there. But if it's a gun law, if it's something for your Second Amendment, he's against it. If it's something for Oh gosh, well, there's one currently that's going through AB 2218. It's a transgender hormone therapy for kids.
Yes, and I've got probably 5 or 6 or 7 of those upcoming bills to talk about tonight. But
We'll
yeah,
talk about
you're
it
right.
later.
But you bring up, ERIC RIGARD, you bring up a very interesting point. Historically speaking, generally, law enforcement tends to be, let's say, 50% or more conservative. Let's not say 75% or 80%, but it generally tends to be conservative. And law enforcement generally tends to be a little bit more familiar with firearms, etc. And they should be familiar with they damn well better be familiar with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Correct.
Because that directly affects how they work and what should be their body of knowledge in terms of the law. And yet, as you pointed out, you've got somebody with a fairly significant law enforcement past who doesn't seem to be rolling that way.
No, and that's what's really hit a lot of people. There are, how do I put it? There are a lot of people within the black community who are down in Elk Grove, down South Sac, down that area, that have had altercations, let's say, with him in the past, and they've got nothing good to say about him. They say he does not represent them. There are a lot of his original supporters that right there in Elk Grove who no longer support him. The people in Lodi, for the most part, this district is really kind of crazy. You're in Lodi.
Yeah, it's odd. You're right, because it spans 2 counties.
Yes. It's 2 counties and 4 different types of areas. You go kind of urban, suburban, maybe a little country, and then you go down to agricultural land.
Yep.
And it's like, what are you doing here? And I look at the district, what should normally be part of the district would be Wilton. Okay, because Wilton and Elk Grove are right next to one.
Exactly.
Right side by side. And but it's not. So that was carved out before. And I think because the population there added to the population in Lodi would make this a much more Republican-leaning kind of district. But that, nevertheless, I mean, what I try to talk to people about are issue-based things. If you're for sanctuary cities, then you vote for him. If you're against it, then you got to come my way. If you want to do, things that protect your Second Amendment, you got to come my way. If you want to deal with things that are good for our school-age kids and what's happening with them, you got to come my way. So I just try to give people a distinct difference between the two based on the issues themselves. And when it's based on the issues, I get a lot of bleed over from Democrats. I get a lot of bleed over from independents, and I definitely have Republicans in hand as well.
I said this the first time that I met you, ERIC RIGARD. I said, I kind of feel sorry for you because it's not dissimilar to Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill. But I also said, on the other hand, you might just be on the eve, on the cusp of a potentially really serious change here in California. People are talking about this being the perfect storm of politics, race, religion, disease, things we've never encountered before for a tumultuous turnaround in United States history. Okay, but I also submit this. You might be dealing with one of the first really significant changes of California in the election. It's not impossible you get elected. It's not impossible other Republicans get elected. That's astounding. That's fortuitous. It is kind of its own little perfect storm, Eric Rigard.
Yeah, it definitely is. And even as I've been out campaigning and talking to different people and stuff, you see it. You see the discontent in a lot of people. And it's not necessarily a party discontent. It's not like, well, everybody that's Democrat's going to walk away and become a Republican. Everybody that's Republican, all the flipping stuff, that's out. They're really looking at the issues and things that pertain to them. And if you can focus on that issue and get them to see where you're coming from, it makes all the difference in the world.
It's like I typified California. It's like a 12-year-old doing a beer run for dad. And you can't get very many adults to sit at the table, essentially. If there was one thing, I need to mention this. If there's one thing that you are, is an adult who wants to sit on the table. Eric Rigard, if we have people that are so inclined, would you be interested in taking any phone calls?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Folks, let me put up here. If you're watching on YouTube, down, I'm scrolling the number if anybody wants to call in. 575-208-4481. 575-208-4481 if you want to talk to Eric Rigard. In the meantime, whereas before I was fairly generic with you, what I want to do is go a bit into your background in maybe, 2 or 3 minutes, if that's okay.
Sure.
And then transition to what you were talking about, the issues, because now there are a ton of highly important, critical issues that we need to address in California. So maybe in about 2 minutes or so, can you tell us a little bit about your background, Eric Rigard?
I am Eric Rigard. I am the first kid in my family born in California. I was born in Los Angeles, California. My parents, my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, everybody, they all came out here from New Orleans. I guess, maybe early, mid-50s, something like that.
Okay.
And so I was born in L.A., went to UCLA, grew up in Inglewood, went to Morningside High School, went to UCLA, came to the Bay Area in like 1982. And in 86, met my wife. We got married. We were living in the Bay Area at the time. And, I've done everything from working with youth football. I was the president of a youth football league. I did a youth choir of about 140 voices. So I've always been involved a lot with kids and developing them. I worked in sales. I started on the street walking territory in sales, and then and shortly thereafter I got into national account sales. So I was handling the big deals and making good money with it too. So that worked out really well. Then I transitioned into placing people in IT jobs.
Okay.
So that's kind of my work history. Oh, and then I also, when I finally left that, I owned a laundromat over in Sacramento and ran that and had fun with that as well. But I started going to Washington, D.C., and I met Star Parker, and I met a few people, Alan West and Marsha Blackburn and people like that. And Tim Scott was back there as well. I met them, and I started really paying attention to what was going on politically. And that's when I started to see what the disparities were, how crazy this thing it really is. And especially here in the state of California. It is a cesspool, the capital.
You're being kind.
The people themselves, I cannot understand why there's such a focus. Well, I do understand it, because they want to get the kids first. It was Hitler's first thing. It was Marxism's. That's where it stems from. Get the kids first. Get their minds wrapped around what you're trying to do, and then you can take over everything. Okay. But we're talking about things that impact children, and parents don't know about it, or their rights have been taken away from them by the state of California, you know? And that I find appalling. And most people don't know that it exists because they don't know what gets passed in the legislature until it impacts them, until it affects them. And then they say, well, why, how did that happen? It is insane, some of the stuff that goes on. And then you got the governor now who, you know, one person in the Senate, I think, had coronavirus. So he sends the whole Senate away, you know, sends them home.
One Republican had it, and then nobody can come in.
So it's like nobody can go in there. But that served his purpose because he doesn't want public discourse there in the Capitol. He doesn't want a room where it's 4/5 of the room is against a bill and 1/5 is for it, and then the senators have got to listen to that. He doesn't want that, so he's got 2 people for, 2 people against. You chime in on Zoom, and that's it. And he's a happy camper. And then he gives these edicts. He places these edicts on us, and none of them today, this very day, none of them are law. He gave them as an order. You got 60 days for that order to fall.
Where's my bell? 60 days.
That's it.
That's exactly right. And people don't recognize that after the 60 days.
The legislature has to vote on it.
It's their job now, not his. That's a perfect point. Simone in chat says nobody knows what gets passed because people are doing everything in secret. Now, I have somebody that's on the line who would like to speak to you.
Sure.
And who do I have on the line? Do I have anybody there?
Oh, it's Kaiser, brother.
Oh, okay. Go ahead,
Yeah,
sir. You're speaking to ERIC RIGARD.
Oh, I know it's Eric. Eric.
Yes, sir.
I've heard you, I think, twice on BZ's show.
Okay.
You're an epic man. And
Thank
here's why I'll say this. I sent you a friend request. Finally, I never got your last name.
Yeah.
Both times I came late to the party. I sent you a friend request. I sent the same thing to BZ. This is not just being fomented within our country, i.e., you can ask BZ my bona fides because he knows all. That's fact. But I sent you a list of folks. It's 700 pages long, by the way. All former ex-East German.
Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do is look at your friend request, Kaiser. Don't worry about the last name or the middle name. It's probably the only one you got from Kaiser.
Okay.
And that list is a list of names that have been activated. This is old East German, Stasi. This is old police force. These are people that are not just the Chinese are trying to, and here's the more important point. Forget everything I just said. More important point is they're trying to destabilize the U.S. And you're seeing it within Black Lives Matter. All 3 of those women, notice there's no males in that. They are directing from BLM, from Patrice on up, those 3 women, they're doing it through BLM. They're trying to negate. It's the same thing. Earlier we talked about this. Or no, I don't think we talked about it. I've talked about it before. It's the same thing Johnson did when he made sure that they had inspections to make sure there was no black male living with children with a black woman.
Exactly.
This is something diabolical. And the other thing I'll say is it's now coming from another country, and it's not just one country, it's several. I don't want to get into the minutia. We can talk about that offline. But the more important part is you're seeing a subversion of the United States. Antifa, antifascista, honestly, if you look back to it, It started in Weimar, Germany, battling the brown shirts. And we saw how that happened. I don't want to see the hard right respond because the media is making something out of something, and the media has complete buy-in. And that's why nobody trusts it. I do trust you, Eric. I've heard all 3 of your conversations now with BZ.
Now, Kaiser, you're in Ohio, though.
Need to hear this too.
You're in Ohio.
Yeah, I know. I'm in Ohio. I can't vote.
No, but
I wish I could.
I know, but I'm trying to think. Are you attempting to say that basically California exists as a cautionary tale unto itself, and it can be counted on to be, say, the petri dish for some of the most expensive, inefficient, least thought out, hypocritical, harmful, striating, business killing, and divisive places with bills and politics in the nation? Is that a little bit of what you're saying?
No, that's completely what I'm saying. I mean, I was stationed in California. I know BZ, you know this. Eric, you don't. I was a Marine in California. And I watched, you guys had the first assault weapons ban. As California goes, so goes the nation. And as our nation goes, so goes the world. The only pushback that has happened from the 1619 Project and, thank God, the CRT has come from Trump. And he's not perfect.
We'll talk about the 1619 Project in just a bit here.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to have to move on,
perfect.
Kaiser, because I only got an hour with Eric.
Right.
But thank you for calling, sir. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
And thanks for mentioning the 1619 Project, because we were just talking about that a little bit before the beginning of the show. So, Kaiser, thank you for that. People, when you speak to people, you're talking about, you're discovering people are issue centrist.
Yes.
They are issue oriented.
Yes.
They're not necessarily party oriented, but if they brace you, they're bracing you on issues that tend to directly affect them. And then you've had some other people that have come up and said, hey, what if, blah, blah. And one of them was the 1619 Project.
Right.
How did you answer or respond to that topic?
You know, when the guy brought this up, and this was just recently, and you know, I've heard of it, and I heard how, you know, I know what its impact is, and the way that I've taken it, and that what I told him is, I said, you know what, if they want to teach that, and they want to teach it as an alternative, then I really don't have a whole lot to say with that. Somebody's got to make up their mind which one they're going to follow, which one is real, which one isn't. Okay? As long as they both have a steady playing field. If you're going to try to eliminate the current curriculum, the current history of the country, and replace it with this, then you and I got big problems. Okay? So I said, you know, you can have that plan there. You can have that whole system there. I said, but you have to show it, you have to teach it, and you have to have a counterpoint to it. It's got to be counterbalanced. Because if you try to replace what's going on now, then you're just rewriting history. You're redesigning history. You're trying to say this didn't happen, this happened. No. You got a perspective, you have an opinion that it happened this way, okay? But what always seems to be left out, whenever they get into slavery and they get into that whole thing, you know, it boggles my mind that everybody wants to skip over the fact that initially, you know, were there white slave traders? Yeah, there were. But who sold them the doggone slaves?
For every buyer, there must be a seller.
Seller, yeah. So there, and so it's like, okay, so you have people from within those tribes that are actually taking their people and selling them into captivity. So you can't put this on the European or the white man or whatever, there's a whole lot you can put on them for slavery.
There's a lot of blame to pass around.
You can put a lot on them for that. But as far as where it started, come on, man, you got to be honest with yourself and say that there's a whole lot of this that we did to ourselves, as black people. So, that's 1619, go for it. But you cannot erase the current history. You just have to show that as being a counterpoint.
ERIC RIGARD, your primary opponent. Oh, shoot, I missed my break. Okay, let me do this here real quick. We're not going to go through the full promo process. I'll just remind everybody where you are right now.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And I am BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin, and you're not. I'm here with ERIC RIGARD in the studio, and he is the GOP candidate for the California Assembly, District 9, here in, it's South Sacramento, Elk Grove,
Galt.
Continues to Galt, and then crosses a county line, and then goes into Lodi. A diverse, wide, and large district in the state of California. What your primary opponent is Jim Cooper, and he's been in 2 terms now? 3 terms. Okay, so he has name recognition. People kind of remember him for having worked with the sheriff's department before. We discussed him about 15 or 20 minutes ago.
Right.
A little bit of a discrepancy there. What do you think the biggest positive is with you over Jim Cooper?
I think that I'm coming at this position as a public servant, which is what this is supposed to be. It's supposed to be representative government. It's supposed to be citizen government, and we're supposed to represent the people that we're there with. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think that maybe 2 years into his tenure, he kind of lost sight of the fact that there are some people that are out here that he's supposed to be taking care of, that he's supposed to be representing. And that's what I'd like to bring back. Bring back the representation so they've got a voice. So if somebody calls the assembly person's office, they get an answer. They don't just get blown off or they get an answer a week from now. They get an answer when they called in. They'll have somebody there who's going to listen to them. My whole thing is I am running as a Republican because that's what I personally believe in. I read the 2 platforms and I made a decision a long time ago that's what this lines up with who I am, with what I believe. So that's why I'm there. But, can I sit down and talk to somebody who's not? Heck yeah, I can. And if there's a good point that could be made on the other side or one way or the other, then let's discuss it. Let's ferret it out and let's see where there is some common ground. And if there's something common we can agree on, then let's do it. If there's not, then, then we got to part ways. We got to just agree to disagree.
Here's one big thing that I think you mentioned that to me is a big plus about you. You mentioned that you owned a laundry business, correct?
Yes.
Okay. To me, that's a massive feather in your cap, and I got to tell you why. Because you, as opposed to, 90% of the people in California, maybe more, you've had to meet a payroll. You've had to obey regulations. You've had to correspond with any number of bodies of law that affected how you ran your business. You did it, and apparently you must have been successful because you're sitting in that seat right here today running as a candidate for assembly in California. So just having met a payroll, I value that in a great way. I think that's a big plus for you.
Yeah, it is. I think just having that experience and having the because there's so many things that you end up dealing with, so many different vendors, so many different companies and stuff like that you end up dealing with while you're running that sort of business. The landlord, the property owner, everybody. Okay. Just keeping the doggone machines running, is one big thing. But it does take a lot. It takes a lot to keep all those balls up and keep them all juggled, keep them up in the air and keep it working. And, so yeah, I'm definitely proud of having done that. And I learned so much from having done that. I look at some people that are in politics now, and they're in politics, or they're in public service, but they have never worked a real job. They have never gone in and done anything. It's always been about, their political position, and I kind of find that's a little disheartening. If you have somebody that's never done it before, never dealt with a payroll before, never dealt with a business before, never dealt with people really before, that's I don't see where there's a whole lot of value in that person being able to govern and lord over me, what my needs are. So,
but I think that's a big plus that you bring to the table that certainly Jim Cooper doesn't, who spent his career in law enforcement. Okay, I spent my career in law enforcement. I didn't do business. But the more things I think you can bring to the table, the more informed and full and more robust an individual or a candidate you are. So let's talk about some specific California regulations and laws that have come up. I looked at your Facebook page and, darn me for not doing this. Where can people find you if they want to discover more about you, or say if people want to donate, or just a place where you can find information on ERIC Regard?
First and foremost, you go to my website, which is Rigard, RIGARD, FOR assembly.com. There you can support me, you can endorse me, you can donate to the campaign. We're grassroots, so every dollar that comes in goes right back out into something, into digital marketing, into something printed, something. So please, if you feel like you'd like to donate, go there, click the donate button. You can give any amount, and it will be greatly appreciated. You can secondly go to Facebook, and I have a page that's ERIC Regard for Assembly. Type that in up at the little top. I think there's a little magnifying glass. Click it. Type in ERIC Regard for Assembly, and that page comes up. Instagram, I have a page. It's I think it's Regard for Assembly. So any iteration of that's going to get you where you need to go. Twitter, I'm at elect ERIC Regard. So you can find me any of those places. I have a YouTube channel too, but I typically tie all of my videos on YouTube to Facebook and onto Twitter, onto Instagram, so you can find them there. Okay.
ERIC Regard, let's talk about some specific bills that have either passed or are pending or in committee right now. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about SB 45. That was passed last Monday, August 31st, I think.
What, 145?
145, yes,
right.
145. Senator Scott Wiener, I'm not making that name up, Democrat out of San Francisco, and Assemblywoman Susan Eggman, introduced the legislation, this is a quote now, to end blatant discrimination against LGBT young people regarding California's sex offender registry. Wiener and Eggman are members of the California Legislative LGBT Caucus. ERIC Regard, do you have any thoughts about SB 145?
Yeah, as I looked at the bill, you read through the bill and you see how many strike-throughs there are, how many times it's amended, how many times, you go through all this stuff. What does it really boil down to? And what it truly boils down to is they've taken what were felony charges for any sort of sexual misconduct, let's say, and now they are either at the discretion of the judge, either a misdemeanor or a felony. Okay, that's not the big problem. The issue is that anyone who has perpetrated that type of crime no longer has to, there's no mandatory registration for them. They do not have to register as a sex offender. They can be in your community and they never have to tell anybody anything. That is abhorrent to me.
Well, again, it's like striating another segment of individuals. If a law applies to one group of people, the theory being, well, it should apply to everyone equally, should it not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just that's where I had my real problem with the bill itself, and I know that it was under the guise of protecting, LGBTQ kids and stuff like that, but that ties into another bill which we were talking about earlier, which I guess you're going to probably bring up, and that's AB 2218. And that's transgender hormone therapy for kids. Okay. Now, California Family Council and some other people, they had a children's hospital in Los Angeles, did a study, and they found out that if that hormone therapy was given to a prepubescent child, that it sterilizes them. Okay, and kids, one day a kid says, well, I want to be gay, and the next day I'm a this, I'm that, I'm pansexual, and who knows what they're going to be in a couple days. Okay, and you got a kid making that decision, and that he can be sterilized. And the kicker is that you as a parent,
you have no input.
Nobody never needs to tell you a thing.
Nope.
You have no input. That is crazy.
How wrong on its face could it be? There are any number of examples, and I could, if I had the time and I wasn't running a show and I actually had a producer, I could go in and bring. The first thing that comes to mind is that poor kid that was in Texas, where the mother wanted to change the boy's sex. The boy said he didn't want to change, took it to the judge. Just stop, people.
Yes.
Let kids be kids. They're too young for surgeries, much yes that. Cosmetic surgeries, oh my God. Just...
Yeah, as an adult, if that's what you want to do, more power to you. Do what you want to do. The state should not be on the hook for your surgery.
No.
Okay, but if that's what you want to do and you're willing to pay for it, go for it. Do what you need to do. The military should not have to pay for your sex change surgery. The prison system should not have to pay for your sex change surgery.
Yes.
If that's what you want to do as an adult, then you have the right to do that.
Certainly.
But as a child, come on, man, we got to do something. And there's another a bill that impacts kids, and I forgot the actual nomenclature. I forgot the name of it, but there was I want to say SB 673. There was a SB 670, which was an informed consent bill for parents for the sex education that they were teaching, and the sex education curriculum, whether you know it or not, was put together by Planned Parenthood and the LGBTQ community. That's who wrote the curriculum.
And I've never understood the nexus between Democrats, leftists, Black Americans, and Planned Parenthood. I've never been able in my life to grok that concept. Who would ever want to align themselves with Margaret Sanger, if you know anything about history, who advocated for the genocide of black people? Do your history, look at what has been promulgated in front of you. How can you do that?
Yep. Well, we've got an incumbent in District 9 who wraps himself in the blanket of Planned Parenthood.
I don't get it.
He wraps himself in it, and you can easily look. Just recently, New York try to disassociate themselves from Margaret Sanger, the New York Planned Parenthood chapter there.
Yeah.
They tried to disassociate themselves from it.
Good luck.
Margaret Sanger was a eugenist. She
Yes.
started the Negro Project. She started talking about the undesirables in the country and wanting to get rid of them, wanting to eliminate them. That is genocide. And you finally have some younger black artists, entertainers. I mean, people say Kanye West, he's just crazy. Kanye West is on talking about Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger and saying, it's 22.5 million black babies in the last 50 years have been aborted. That is an entire generation.
And yet Democrats will wrap themselves in the cloak
Yes.
of an individual, a white individual who advocated genocide for an entire race.
Yes.
What the hell?
Yes.
Okay, we got somebody also on the line. I do not know who it is. You are on the line. Go ahead. Are you there? Caller in.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Do you have any
Hi.
questions for ERIC Rigard?
I do. This is Simone.
How you doing, Simone?
Hi. Hey, I'm just really glad that you're running because, Jim Cooper voted in favor of Senate Bill 145.
Yes,
He was one of the few Republicans that voted in favor of that. And it's so frustrating. It's almost like, I'm not a Bible thumper or anything like that, but I'm just basic decency is you don't kill babies that are viable.
No.
I mean, it's different if the mom's health is at stake or something else. But the Democrats want, even if the baby comes out, they kill it. And to me, that's so like Moloch, like back in the day of the pharaohs, when the populace would sacrifice their children live into this,
Right.
evil God thing. It's
Right.
California feels so much like Sodom and Gomorrah right now.
It is. There is a root in the legislature that is very much like Sodom and Gomorrah. There are things. I'm saying, what does this have to do with leading this state, with doing the business of the state?
Exactly.
The bills that are coming up are crazy. And
people aren't thirsting for that. People are thirsting for, can I get a job?
Yes.
Can I pay my mortgage?
Can I keep my job?
Can I keep my job? Can I keep my house?
Yes.
Can I keep from going bankrupt? I want a business. Could I get a business? Can I even afford to get a car?
Well, Mr. Rigard, when you were talking about children and what they're being exposed to in school, I mean, the Democrats are trying to say that Lincoln was a Democrat, which he wasn't, because they're trying to paint themselves in a better light. And now parents, because of homeschooling that everybody's having to do, I think it's opening a lot of people's eyes. One, that their kids are not little angels, and they get to know that.
Yes.
And two, the schools are trying to stop the parents from joining in on the Zoom because they don't want the parents to know what the kids are learning. That speaks volumes. I mean, why are you afraid of, in theory, an educator should reach out even further. If you can teach a young child and their parents aren't that educated, then you could teach them too. But they're not looking at it that way, which tells me there's something nefarious going on. And it's almost like this subculture of, and I hate to sound weird, but it's like demonic. It's like...
Oh, it is. It is 100% demonic. It's 100% demonic, and it's by design. It is by design to keep parents out of the loop. When we went for AB 670, that was the first informed consent bill. They were talking about it, and there was one guy on the Senate dais who stood up and said, "I'm glad you're here now." He said, "But you've got to keep coming here. You got to keep pushing this thing because the state of California wants to take control of your children away from you." That's all I needed to hear. That's all I needed to hear that day. I said, this thing is diabolical. And it's...
it's very much like, I'm sorry to say, when the Native Americans were around and the Franciscan monks, were, were building up California, they would take the Indian children away from the parents to, inculcate them into a new culture and belief system. And I just feel like, I don't know, I don't think the Nazis are great guys. It just feels like the state I'm living in is like a whole different country. And we need more people like you to go in and make a difference. Because there's a silent majority out here, and we are really unhappy with what Newsom, all the stuff you guys already talked about, so I won't go over it again. All the stuff that, in fact, we call him Mussolini. Well, the stuff that he's doing, taking power. His aunt can get her hair done, but no one else can. State offices that have gyms can be open, but the rest of the people can't go to their gym. I mean, it's shades of what's going on in New York. Thank you for running. Thank you for being a brave man. My prayers are with you.
I appreciate your prayers more than anything, and my whole thing is, I talked to a lot of people. I said, how did we get here? We got here one step, one compromise, one little piece at a time. And then when we get down at the end of the road, we look and said, how in the heck did I get over here? Because you kept making those little concessions, little decisions along the way. My job is to get in there and to begin to steer this ship back straight. Is it going to happen?
Good.
Is it going to happen overnight? No.
Well, it's like boiling a frog, right? I mean, you can kill a frog by turning it up 1 degree at a time, and before it knows it, it's cooked.
Dead. That's it. Exactly. Exactly. So
well, Mr. Rigard, you keep the faith, sir. Keep
I
the
definitely
faith.
will.
There are prayers for you, and I fully support you. I'm not sure I'm in your district, but I will put my message out on social media, and I'll visit your Facebook site. Hopefully BZ will put it in the chat room, type it in for us so that we can copy and paste it. And thank you, BZ, for having people like Mr. Rigard in, because there's so much ugly news in social media. It's so nice to talk to real people.
There you go. Thank you so very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Simone.
you, sir.
Really appreciate it. Because if you haven't crocked that concept by now, folks, ERIC RIGARD is real people. There are a couple other bills that I just want to gloss over very briefly.
Sure.
That, as you indicated, are perfectly illustrative of the mind of California right now. SB 132 gives male inmates the legal right to be housed in women's prisons. SB 132 passed the Senate 29-10. Bill analysis explains requires a person incarcerated by CDCR to be issued identification reflecting a gender marker consistent with the gender identity the individual has most recently specified. Here's another one. SB 1237 and AB 890, lowering health standards for abortion providers. Again, SB 1237 passed the Assembly 68-0, 10 abstentions. AB 890 passed the Assembly 53-1 with 25 abstentions. Yeah. It just keeps rolling along.
It does, and I kind of, I hate to, no, I don't hate to do this. I kind of am the same as Ben Shapiro when it comes to, transgender and that sort of thing. When people decide what gender they want to identify as, okay, that's a decision they make. You want to be a woman, you want to take hormone therapy, whatever you want to do, you can do that as an adult, okay? But do not expect me to change my way of thinking and my thought pattern and everything else and to start to call you a woman when I know that you're a man. Okay, God made a man and a woman, period. That's it. Two sexes, that's it. Now, if you choose to identify as something else, then I have no problem, no qualms with you. Okay, no problem whatsoever. I'm not homophobic. I'm not, I have no phobias whatsoever. But I know that there are two sets of equipment, that we come here with. And that's it. That's it.
The other point about that is American taxpayers should not be forced to fund something like that. If that is a personal want and you are a consenting adult, you're somebody of the age of 18 or above, let's say, as would be the norm with most every other law, serving in the U.S. military, etc. Okay, you're considered to be an adult. You want to make that decision? Fine. I'm not going to fund it. I shouldn't be forced to fund it. You want it. You pay for it. How you get it, GoFundMe page, whatever. The taxpayer shouldn't be on the hook.
Should not be on the hook
for that.
Should not be on the hook. And unfortunately, within the prison system and stuff like that, they are trying to make it mandatory where you can just come in and say, this is what I want one day, and they have to pay for that. No, I can't go along with that. There are things that we have to take care of. We must take care of people's health. Then let's do that. But if we're going to do sex change operations and things, I'm very uncomfortable with that, and I say no state dollars for that.
There's also another issue. I want to hit one more topic before we go because we're getting close to the top of the hour.
Sure.
I said probably almost 10 years ago, California created a law, I can't remember what it was called, resolution or something like that, where people that were going to be committed to California state prisons then ended up serving their time in county facilities. County facilities were not ready for that. They were not funded for that. The money did not come to them for that. They don't have, California counties don't have the equivalent of, say, Pelican Bay.
Right.
But I said what's going to happen is that people, inmates, who are used to the luxuries that are in the state prison system are going to call their attorneys once they're placed into a California county system and say, I'm not getting the same stuff. I'm not being treated equally in this county X as I was in the state. So all those attorneys are going to dust off those big boxes full of lawsuits where they sued the state of California to get fill in the blank and fill in county of X where state of California used to be there. Those lawsuits are already starting. Final observation. When you came here today, we had wind. We had some of the worst air that you could possibly imagine as you came in. I'm watching Southern Oregon burn. Today, California is alight. The policies that I'm hoping you may have influence on when people in District 9 may not think that what you vote on in terms of electricity, forest management, water management is important. Everyone in District 9 is being affected by the stuff that leftists and Democrats have ignored for about 50 years.
Right.
Final comments on how do we, ERIC RIGARD, mitigate or take care of electrical generation stations, infrastructure, water, forest management? Can we do that?
We can do it. However, from an energy perspective, California has bought into the Green New Deal before the Green New Deal ever, became an issue.
True.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it would take a while to rebuild the infrastructure in order to sustain some of the nuclear power and things like that we've had in the past. Even if you did as hydropower, we've got enough. There's enough water and there's enough water that's backed up in dams and stuff like that. We could generate quite a bit of hydropower. But no, we want to do it by wind, and we want to do it by windmills, and we want to do it the most inefficient way, which we say is, it's the most renewable. But
it's not the most consistently reliable for day-to-day demand.
Exactly. It's not reliable. It's not consistent. And then you have rolling blackouts that we have now. As far as the forests are concerned, I have always I owned a piece of property in El Dorado County at one point. And I was thinking about building a house on it. The El Dorado County used to send me out there every year to make sure that those weeds and stuff got cut down. So if you as a property owner have got to take care of your property and have got to clear out the weeds, have got to clear out that brush every year, or else they're going to slap you with a fine, then what's with the state of California that it cannot go through the forest and manage that and get that stuff cut down? Because all it is fuel.
I bring that up because I have a cabin that I've lived in since 93 at the 4,000-foot level in the Sierra Nevada mountains. You hit a point. When I go up there, all I see is fuel.
That's it.
There are, what was it, close to 500 million dead trees in the state of California that, unless they change the law, you can't touch. I can take you to places up there where you can find deadfall, dead trees, pine needles, brush, 2 to 3 feet thick.
Yes.
No controlled burns, no forest management, zero. End of statement. And we are reaping the results of that today.
Every year, they keep talking about the wildfires and how bad they are. Every year. But have you ever seen anybody go out there and clean that thing up? If they could take some of those old trees out, just replant them. I'm not saying do away with the trees. The trees are beautiful. I'm glad that we have them for the air, for everything else we derive from them. But you can replant those trees, okay? And the dead wood that's there, take that stuff out.
Yes.
Take it out.
Yes.
So, yeah, there are definitely things that we should be doing that that I would definitely like to chime in on when I get to the Capitol. So, but yeah, they're just common sense. Most people that own a property up there have probably been going and saying the same thing to the county supervisors for the last 10, 15 years and have got nothing done.
No, zero, absolutely nothing. And I pay an additional tax to live there. Where's that going? No one knows.
No one knows.
No one knows.
Yeah.
Okay, ERIC RIGARD, I know you got to go. You're a busy dude. So I got to say this. Number one, thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. Number two, what I'd like to do if I can now is attempt to, maybe next week or something like that, set up a date one more time in October where you come here and we discuss some more issues before November 3rd. The more people that I can get you in front of who listen to who you really are, I think will be of benefit to everybody because, as you indicate, you're an issue guy.
Right.
And I think that's critical.
And you know what? I'm going to tell you this. I know that during the primary, I spent most of my time in Elk Grove because I had 1 month before the primary happened. Yep. I never made it to Lodi. I went to Lodi one day. I never made it to South Sacramento, to the Pocket area. Never made it to Galt.
A ton of people.
Now we're going to spend next Saturday in the Pocket area in South Sacramento, Meadowview, and stuff like that. We're going to go down and spend 2 or 3 days in Lodi. We're going to spend some time in Galt. We're going to get out and meet the people and get in front of them. And I've been doing that for the last several months, and it's been paying off. And the more my name gets out there, I think we're not only going to compete, but we're going to win.
Frankly, honestly, I think you can do it. I really do think you can do it. People are pissed off.
Yes.
But I think here's the deal. People are silent. People are quiet. Americans are generally an incredibly tolerant people.
Yes.
When you push them and you make violence the result of their having an opinion, when you pull the cork out of that bottle, say November 3rd, during an election, I think a lot of people, including people in California,
yes,
are going to surprise a lot of folks.
Yeah,
that's my guess on that.
No, I believe that 100%, and I definitely think it's gonna happen. So we're just gonna go and keep knocking it down. I can send everybody once again to my website, and you can actually put that in the chat as well. But it is RIGARD, RIGARD, FOR, Assembly, ASSEMBLY.com. My email address is the same thing, regardforassembly.com. Just on the front of it, put ERIC, at regardforassembly.com.
Okay.
All right.
Eric at. Wait. First, I'd have to spell out Eric. Why isn't this thing?
ERIC at regardforassembly.com.
Okay. Now, up in the chat room, I have placed it. There's Eric Rigard's website that everybody can look at in SHR Media Chat, and also his email, Eric at Regard for Assembly, up in the SHR Media Chat room.
Call me, ask me any question whatsoever. I'd love to hear from you.
Okay. Eric Rigard, we're going to call you back. We're going to have you back. I'll probably contact you sometime next week to find out what day in October next month is good for you.
That'll work.
I want to have you on at least one more time so more people can hear you and understand what kind of a man you are.
That'll work.
Congratulations. Good luck. That was great that you ripped your... Oh, let me ask you one final question. When you ripped your primary back in March, how did you feel? How did that make you feel?
I was blown away. I was blown away because I knew that I just had I had 3 days to get signatures. I got the signatures in. I had 1 month to campaign. I campaigned during that month. I went to my church and my church family. And so my sphere of influence might be 2,000, 2,500 people. I had 35,000 people vote for me. And the rest of nobody even knew who the heck I was. Okay? So for that number of people to have voted for me this time through, it's going to go through the roof. And,
I think it is.
And we're just going to do this thing. We're going to do it and give the people, truly my heart's desire is to give the people the representation that they deserve. If they're going to pay an assembly person, they're going to have an assembly person working for them, then have that person truly working for them. That's what I want to do.
We're going to have you back. Thank you for being here.
No problem.
Thank you for staying up. Thank you for coming through this sky that you could literally chew through right now to be here. We'll have you back in October. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Rigard, GOP candidate for Assembly, District 9. Go to regardforassembly.com, regardforassembly.com. Thank you, sir, for being here tonight. We're going to take a break. I'll be back with Sackhead Sean. And Sean and I are going to go over something that we think is probably going to happen sometime around a little bit after November. I'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Shannon Wright of The Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Mike's not here, so I gotta talk fast. You gotta join us. Fall season. Getting ready to start up with a whole bunch of new stuff. News and food and politics and sports and entertainment and a whole bunch of stuff. But wait, Mike's coming. I gotta go. Remember, Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media, Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. Make sure you tune in.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian, Sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. It's the second hour, but it's after the second hour. It's 9:13 on the far left coast, which means it's 12:13 past the magic witching hour on the far right coast. I had ERIC RIGARD here. I gotta have him back. I was just telling Sean, I didn't get to a fraction of the crap that I had to ask him. Tons of questions, tons of issues, tons of topics, and as I said to Eric before he left, hey, between now and then, oh my God, the topics and the craziness is going to explode. It's going to explode.
Oh, it's going to be out of control. Totally out of control. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just going to get more stupid.
Oh. It's funny you should mention stupid. Hey, before I do that...
Why, you have a Democrat on the line? I just didn't know if somebody called in.
Yeah, okay. Hey, wait a minute. This thing went wonky on me. Where did it... Now it hid...
Yes, it's the computer's fault.
It is the computer's fault. Okay, well, I'm not... Oh, wait, here we go. Yes, I can do it now. I found it. We'll do this real quick. Like a bunny. Yeah.
The Bloviating Zeppelins, HeyJackass.com Chicago Death Toll Update. Courtesy of Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Because as we know, Black Lives Matter, except they don't matter in Chicago. HeyJackass.com, illustrating Chicago values. So here's our recap to date. September to date, shot and killed in the city of Chicago, 19. Shot and wounded, 80. Total shot, 99. Total homicides, 22. September to date. It's the 9th. Actually, it's the 10th.
Grossly underreported mass shooting, too.
Oh, yes. Funny how
at
that
the Waffle
works
House
out.
or the Waffle Place. Yeah, 4 people shot, which 3 or more is a mass shooting. I believe that's what constitutes these days.
That's exactly correct.
1 killed, and 3 different suspects, all masked. Well, I mean, everybody is now. So, I mean, really.
Hello, have possessed mouth, open, insert foot. Also, week in progress, September 6th to September 12th, shot and killed 7, shot and wounded 25, total shot 32, total homicides 8. Year to date, here's the biggie. Shot and killed only 495. Shot and wounded 2,414. Total shot 2,909. Total homicides 541.
Beautiful days in downtown Mogadishu.
Beautiful day in
Chicago.
The Chicago neighborhood.
Do you know in the city of Chicago, listen to the statistic, because I turned you on to HeyJackass.com.
You did. It was great. It's grand.
And, a person in Chicago is shot every 2 hours and 4 minutes. There is a murder on average 11 hours. Every 11 hours. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. Hashtag because why not?
And if you don't go to HeyJackass.com, you really won't understand.
You're missing out.
Yes. It's insane to me. All of 2019, there were 6 police-involved shootings resulting in 6 deaths in Chicago. 2020, in September, there's already been 8. Total of 12 in 2019. 6 and 6. 6 killed, 6 wounded. In 2020, it has been 5 killed, 8 wounded. So there's a direct correlation to more violence, more officer-involved shootings. Weird.
No,
it's almost like that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's almost like if you encourage people to act in a certain way, they act that certain way, and then they receive their comeuppance.
Wait a minute.
And then you're going to blame the person holding them accountable? No.
Are you saying that there are patterns of expectations, and when expectations are low, people meet those low expectations?
Easily. 471 homicides.
Imagine that.
Out of the total, for 91.6% were by, anyone guess? Gunshot.
I was going to say slingshot. I missed that one. Damn it.
22 stabbings. Resulted in murders this year in 2019.
With blunt sporks.
Blunt force trauma is 13. Strangulation. You don't get a lot of strangulations anymore. 3. Auto and intentionally running somebody over is 3. Now, victim race assailant. You ready for this?
Okay.
Out of the 406 victims, 79.0% were black. 82 total, 16% Hispanic, white or other, 22 total. Okay. That equals 4.3%. 79% of the victim assailant correlation were black. Just so everybody understands, when we talk about black on black crime.
Have you checked those statistics?
Very much so. Very much so.
I don't.
Wait. What? Because when we talk about the leading cause of death of young black men in this country, of the 14 homicides this year, 462 were male. 52 were female. Wounded this year in Chicago, the city of Chicago alone, 1,984 males, 339 females. You know, when we talk about feminism in this country,
they're not doing their part.
They're not. No, I mean,
they're kind of slacking on slackers.
You know, but you see all this stuff about like how men have it so easy and men in the workplace, and you know, it doesn't matter that men are. I think it's like 10 to 1 more likely to commit suicide. They're more than likely to be killed in a skirmish or a homicide. There's a lot of numbers there in which males do not come out well in any sort of incidents. It's very sad.
I think I have an audio cut where Joe Biden wants to weigh in on this.
Okay. COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak,
100 million.
It's taken more than 100 years. Look,
100 years.
Here's the lives.
Look, Joe, what?
When
Joe.
you think about it.
Joe, come on.
More lives this year than any other year.
Any other year that we've had COVID-19, which is called COVID-19 because it was developed in 2019 or it first showed up. But that's okay.
No, that's fine.
So You didn't have COVID-19 in 1948. Just so we're clear on that.
Was that fact? Did you get that fact check?
I'm almost positive.
Speaking of fact checks.
Hold on. I want to do one more number from
okay.
HeyJackass.com, because this is a big one.
It is.
The total amount of shootings that took place in Chicago in 2020, 99.6 were committed by the community, 2,858. Do you know how many were committed by law enforcement? And this includes justified and probably non.
Okay.
I don't know if they've had any non-justified shootings, but if it was, I'm sure it would be in here. A total of 12.4%. So why is law enforcement the problem again? There's been 15 people shot in the year 2020 in one incident in Chicago. The numbers are staggering. These numbers are amazing.
I say this again. I make fun of this because it's demanding that I do, really.
Yeah.
But it simply buttresses what everybody is ignoring. Black lives don't matter. And they apparently don't matter mostest in Chicago.
Well, and here's the thing, too, financially. Let's look at how this financially impacts a city. In 2020, the total cost of all the homicide, shootings, and violence, $154 million, rounded. And this is based on the assumption that $55,000, the average cost of a victim of ER and hospital expenses, for the $1,000 for the ambulance ride. It was only applicable to 80%, so they actually factored for that because everyone else was self-transport. $800 for just the autopsy. This doesn't include hospice care, ongoing rehab, police overtime, court time, investigators' time. That is not included in this. $154 million in the city of Chicago just on their violence alone.
Which, if they were smart, they would simply defund the police and fund social workers to go out and
fix
handle
the violence
and handle the calls. Because, if we had a cadre of social workers.
Spelled my name wrong.
I know. Of where?
When you click back to me, it says ERIC Regard. If somebody's tuning in late, they're going to be very confused.
Okay. All right. Okay. Since I didn't have the ability to do that, let's do this. Why on the air? Let's do this on the air. Sections. Oh, it's not going to fit. Nope.
No, you just usually do Sean.
I'm going to have to do Sean. There we go.
There we go. Nailing it.
All right. Now I got it. Thanks for reminding me.
No, my pleasure.
That. I'll be here all night. I'm going to play a bit of a video, and then what I'd like to do is I showed Sean these two articles because I want to make a point. This weekend, The Atlantic made a point, and I'm going to make a counterpoint and dovetail the two, and everyone will see where I'm going and what I'm doing. Before I do that, because this is so good, one of the reasons I love the internet is because frequently, unless somebody figures out, we got to take this down, the internet remembers a lot of things that nobody else does. So let's go back in time for these loving words right now.
Presidential candidate Joseph Biden today faces a controversy. 3 weeks ago at a debate at the Iowa State Fair, he used phrases identical to those delivered by British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock.
This is great. Biden seemed to be claiming Kinnock's vision and life as his own.
Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why is Gladys the first woman in her family in 1,000 generations to be able to get to university?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania don't come up after 12 hours and play football.
8 hours underground and then come up and play football.
It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
There was no platform upon which they could stand.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
The problem here is that Senator Biden told his audience he'd just been thinking about these things, and he failed to give any credit at all to his famous British speechwriter.
Just running around in the old Biden noggin.
Imagine that. I could go on. The video is 5 minutes, but...
And it's not the first time. He also... Look, this is also the guy who claimed to have graduated the top of his class from law school and to find out that he barely graduated. Said he went on a full scholarship. There was no scholarship.
Yeah, because he was such a great... He was a legal mind.
Remember, he was also detained in South Africa, or arrested in South Africa.
Oh, God, yeah. How could anybody forget that?
For protesting apartheid.
Right.
And then come to find out he really wasn't. But that's not important.
Yeah.
Look,
his grandmother used to make great clam chowder.
Here's the thing with Joe Biden these days. He might actually think that he's done all these things now for sure.
Well, in his base... Joe Hayden.
Yeah, in his
Changed
basement.
the B to the H.
In his basement.
Yep.
Well, I always liked Basement Joe. It's like Broadway Joe for the old football player there, Joe.
Back in the 70s,
yeah,
people
Joe
would
Namath.
remember that.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember that.
Yep, Joe
Are you-
Namath.
Are you don't remember Joe Namath, do you?
I remember Joe Namath just post-football.
Okay. You probably remember him selling Depends.
Well before he got drunk at the Super Bowl and tried to make out with the news reporter.
Oh, there's still video of that, too, hanging around as well.
That's going to be around forever.
I got 2 articles that I want to go over.
Okay.
The first one is by Michael Anton at AmericanMind.org, and I want you to weigh in as I read this with your thoughts. And this really, plus the linked article that he mentions, I have a copy of that as well. By Michael Anton, it's called The Coming Coup. It's from AmericanMind.org, and it's subheadlined, Demorats are laying the groundwork for revolution right in front of our eyes. As if 2020 were not insane enough already, we have the Demorats and their ruling class masters openly talking about staging a coup. You might have missed it. What with the riots, lockdowns, and other daily mayhem we're forced to endure in this, the most wretched year of my lifetime, but it's happening. It started with the military brass. Remember this. It started with the military brass quietly indicating that troops should not follow a presidential order. They were bolstered by many former generals, including President Trump's own first Secretary of Defense, who stated openly the brass would only hint at what the brass would only hint at. Then, as nationwide riots really got rolling in early June, the sitting Secretary of Defense himself all but publicly told the president not to invoke the Insurrection Act. His implicit message was, Mr. President, don't tell us to do that because we won't, and you know what happens after that. Now, all this enthused Joe Biden, who threw subtlety to the winds, the former United States Senator for 26 years and Vice President for 8, has not once, not twice, but thrice confidently asserted that the military will, quote, escort Trump from the White House with great dispatch should the president refuse to leave. Another former vice president, Al Gore, publicly agreed. One might dismiss such comments as the ravings of a dementia patient and his has-been who never got over his own electoral loss. But before you do, consider also this. Over the summer, a story was deliberately leaked to the press of a meeting at which 100 Demorat grandees, anti-Trump former Republicans, and other ruling class apparatchiks got together on George Soros's dime to game out various outcomes of the 2020 election. This is where you need to start paying attention, people. One such outcome was a clear Trump win. Now, in that, eventually, former Bill Clinton, White House Chief of Staff John Podesta, playing Biden, refused to concede, pressured states that Trump won to send Demorats to the former Electoral College vote, and trusted that the military would take care of the rest. This isn't the Manchurian Candidate. This isn't a novel. This isn't a movie. This is reality. The leaked report from the exercise darkly concluded that, quote, technocratic solutions courts and reliance on elites observing norms are not the answer here, promising that what would follow this November election would be, quote, a street fight, not a legal battle. Let me repeat that again. It would be a, quote, street fight, not a legal battle. These are the Demorats telling you what they plan. 2 more data points, among several that could be provided. Over the summer, 2 former Army officers, both prominent in the Democrat-aligned national security think tank world, wrote an open letter to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in which they urged him to deploy the 82nd Airborne Division to drag President Trump from the Oval Office at precisely 12:01 p.m. January 20th, 2021. About a month later, Hillary Clinton declared publicly that Joe Biden should not concede the election, quote, under any circumstances.
Yes.
The Old English major in me interprets the word any to mean no, none, nada, niente, zero, zilch, bupkis. You get the idea. This doesn't sound like the rhetoric of a political party confident it will win an upcoming election.
No.
The cover-up in plain sight. These items are, to repeat, merely a short but representative list of what Byron York recently labeled coup porn. Sackhead Sean, is this coup porn?
Yes.
Okay.
So here's the thing. And I want to talk to the totality of this exercise that they had. Before we get into like what would happen if, which will come later down the line, there is a potential that this exercise, which they already knew the outcome ahead of time, they say bipartisan, as we talked about before.
Yeah, it wasn't.
They're just establishment politicians and people who made money off politicians who used to lean towards the center and call themselves Republicans.
Well, and that's where they made their coin.
Right.
On their books, blah, 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 blah.
But as we
blah.
all know, they're not true conservatives.
They're Jaffers.
Right, they are. So that's one thing. The other thing, too, is oftentimes I'm not saying this is the case here. I think exercises like that get done, published, produced, and put everyone's faces to scare people. Well, we don't want that to happen in our country where Trump says no and then is refused to leave. We better vote for Biden overwhelmingly so that doesn't happen. And if you don't think that it's not all about the election and scaring people one way or the other, it is.
Fear sells.
Yes, absolutely. Fight or flight.
Coronavirus, fear sells.
Yep. So go on, but there is a potential that all of this was orchestrated to garner votes for Biden.
York seems to think this is just harmless fantasizing on the part of the ruling class and its Demorat servants. Now, for some of them, no doubt that's true, but for all of them, I'm not so sure. In his famously exhaustive discussion of conspiracies, Machiavelli goes out of his way to emphasize the indispensability of, quote, operational security, what we call OPSEC, i.e. silence to success. The first rule of conspiracy is you don't talk about the conspiracy.
It's like Fight Club.
Yeah. The second rule of conspiracy is you don't talk about the conspiracy.
It's also like Fight Club.
So Michael Anton asks, so why are the Demorats publicly talking about the conspiracy? And he says, because they know that for it to succeed, it must not look like a conspiracy.
Right.
They need to plant the idea in the public mind now that their unlawful and illegitimate removal of President Trump from office will somehow be his fault. Never mind the pesky detail. Stop.
Remember how they legitimized or trying to legitimize backwards the wiretapping of the Trump campaign?
Yes.
And all of the actions. Look at how they try to legitimize what Hillary did with her server.
Oh, that's completely justifiable.
Right. And all of these things. So they have a history of showing you that they will do something bad and then legitimize it either prior or after.
Or, as I've said, BZ's 2 axioms. Number 1, in an election year, every damn thing, folks, is about the election. Everything is about the election. Do not think it's not. And then number 2, well, I forgot number 2. Let's go back to number 1.
Always go back to number 1.
Always go back to number 1.
Well, and like you said earlier, right? If the first rule of Fight Club is to not talk about Fight Club, why are they suddenly talking about Fight Club? Well, because they can't get that rumor and that conspiracy to be gestated and accepted.
Trump is not going to start it.
Without somebody talking about it. So they have these whole bunch of has-beens who still have some political pull, sort of speak. And Podesta's going to act like Joe Biden. No, he's not. Podesta is absolutely a political assassin. That was his whole job, even with Clinton. Podesta, we saw his emails. We know what kind of human he's not going to act the same way Biden will, but neither will Biden, because Biden's not making Biden's decisions.
No, he's...
So that adds another level of murkiness to the bullshit waters. But I digress. Continue.
They need to plant the idea in the public mind now that the unlawful and illegitimate removal of President Trump from office will somehow be his fault. Now, never mind the pesky detail that the president would refuse to leave only if he were convinced he legitimately won. Remember, Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
Yep.
The second part of the plan is either to produce enough harvested ballots, lawfully or not, to tip close states, or else dispute the results in close states and insist, no matter what the tally says, that Biden won them.
Mm-hmm.
The worst case scenario for the country, but not for the ruling class, would be results in a handful of states that are so ambiguous and hotly disputed that no one can rightly say who won. Of course, that will not stop the Demorats from insisting that they won.
Well, why would it?
Yeah. The public preparation for that has also already begun. Streams and tons of stories about social media posts explaining, air quotes, how while on election night it might look as if Trump won, close states will tip to Biden as all the mail-in ballots are counted, air quotes. The third piece is to get the vast and loud Demlaugh propaganda machine ready for war. That leaked report exhorted Demorats to identify, quote, key influencers in the media among local activists who can affect political perceptions and mobilize political action, who could establish pre-commitments to playing a constructive role in event of a contested election, i.e., in blaring from every rooftop that Trump lost. Now, at this point, it's safe to assume that unless Trump wins in a blowout that can't be overcome by cheating and or denied via the ruling class's massive propaganda operation, that's exactly what every Demorat politician and media organ are going to shout. So,
well,
his next question, I think, logically is, okay, then what?
Well, so I want to comment really quick, just because over my shoulder we have some live protest video going. But we talk about legitimizing actions prior or after. They are legitimizing the riots they will incite after the election should Trump win.
Sure.
And that's exactly what this is. And I just wanted to give another example of what that was.
No,
they're making it normal, so when it happens, it's not abnormal, and people go, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is I have a feeling that after the election, the resistance to this by the average citizen is going to go through the roof.
The resistance to
this sort of behavior on the city streets.
Okay. You're saying in the event of a Trump win?
Yes. In the event of a Biden win, believe it or not, I don't think anything will happen.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see what Michael has to say.
Go ahead.
He says, okay, stop the presses. What then? The Podesta assumption is that the military, this is also, again, where you need to pay attention, folks. The Podesta assumption is that the military will side with the Demorats. There are reasons to fear that they might. Yes, sir.
But, and again, this is trying to sway public opinion, right? Well, if the military thinks it's a good idea, then it must be a good idea. Because what does this country believe in by and large? We believe in our military.
Yes, we do.
The average citizen believes in the military. So if the military, well, I mean, obviously the military seems to be going along with this, so maybe it's the right thing to do. Playing that emotion.
Hold that thought, because you nailed a portion of the dovetailing into the wall that I'm attempting to tie together tonight.
It's almost like I'm fucking good at this.
We are on a congruent path here, young sir, I'm trying to say. So he continues writing. He says, the Obama administration spent a great deal of political capital purging the officer corps of anyone not down with the program and promoting only those who are. That's how they got there.
Yeah, lot of
crafting done.
Moves were done under the Obama
in the military
administration
under the Obama
for
administration.
senior officials. Yes,
and if you wanted to get ahead, that's what your mindset must have been.
And the people who are already in that mindset got ahead faster.
Yes, they did. And persons who wanted to move up the food chain, they saw what was happening right in front of their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he continues, still in all, determining the outcome of an election would be the most open political interference possible from our allegedly apolitical military. And it's plausible that the brass won't want to make its quiet support of the ruling class agenda that overt. The aforementioned chairman has already stated that the military will play, quote, no role in the outcome of the election. That's probably not a feint, but one wonders if it'll hold given the obvious attempt to influence military thinking by people like Jeffrey Goldberg in his recent Atlantic essay. Now we're getting closer. Mm-hmm. See what's coming here, folks?
Mm-hmm.
Can the Dems rely on the Secret Service to drag Trump out? I have my doubts on that one. I've seen the service up close. It really is, or strongly appears to be, apolitical. It has a job to do, protect the president, whoever that is. Officers take the job very seriously. If they don't believe Trump lost, I don't think they can be counted on to oust him. On the other hand, were they to believe he did lose and was refusing to leave, a scenario I find impossible to imagine, but the Demorats insist is just around the corner, well, it's possible the Secret Service might act. Barring all that, what's
After a
left?
Supreme Court ruling.
But wait. There's more. Remember that phrase from the Dem War Game Street Fight?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, a repeat of this summer, only much, much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Crank the propaganda to eardrum-shattering decibels and fill the streets of every major city with, quote, protesters, air quotes. Shut down the country and allow only one message to be heard. Trump must go. i.e. what's come to be known as a color revolution, the exact same playbook the American deep state runs in other countries whose leadership they don't like and is currently running in Belarus.
Mm-hmm.
Oust a leader, even an elected one, through agitation and call it democracy. The events of the last few months may be interpreted as an attempted color revolution that failed to gain enough steam, or as a trial run for the fall. So he asks, is the Trump administration prepared? Here's one thing they could do. Play their own war game scenario so as to game out possibilities and minimize surprises. They should also be talking to people inside and outside of government whom they absolutely trust to get a clearer sense of who on the inside won't go along with a coup and who might. They also need to set up or shore up now communication channels that don't rely on the media or big tech. That's a huge one.
Well, and I agree. To answer the professor's writings, I assure you, you won't get the public release, but I'm sure these scenarios have been walked through upon release of this scenario. I absolutely think, look, at the end of the day, if we are in a state of emergency, a constitutional crisis, if there is uprisings and the military starts to splinter off, hypothetically, Trump does have a direct way of communicating with the people. You ever gotten an Amber Alert?
Yeah.
Right, wrong, or indifferent. Whether he's supposed to use it or not supposed to use it will be decided in courts after the fact. But if we are to that point where the very, very fabric of our constitutional republic is being threatened by force from within as a either nonviolent and or violent coup, then all bets are off.
Ways exist. Now, it's funny you should bring that up.
And that even works, by the way, on dead phones. It activates every phone that was made after 2010, I believe. So even if the phone companies cut your service, let's just say, it will still receive a notification for the emergency alert because it's a public safety one.
So Michael Anton writes in this article, once the ruling class gives word that the narrative is Trump lost, all the president's social media accounts will be suspended.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Anton writes, The TV channels, with the likely exception of Fox News, will refuse to cover anything he says. Count on it. He's going to need a way to talk to the American people, and he has to find the means now. Interesting that you brought that up. That's another alternative that you just listed. For the rest of us, the most important thing we can do is raise awareness. If there is a conspiracy to remove President Trump from office, even if he wins, they're telling you about it precisely to get you ready for it, so that when it happens, you won't think it's a conspiracy. You'll blame the president.
Deja vu all over again.
His final sentence is, don't be fooled.
And here's the thing, and I can hear every liberal left-wing nutcase out there right now going, oh, listen to the conspiracies they're throwing around. They're throwing around the military. What might happen if Trump refuses or Biden refuses? They're lunatics. No. The Democrats created this little war game first.
Funny you should mention that.
We are
also
responding.
Yes,
and there's a big difference.
Action and reaction.
Yes. And why have an action if those possibilities aren't potential? So you have your response ready. Look, you look militarily, right? We have thousands of scenarios set up in our military strategic strike guidelines, strategic defense guidelines. We have scenarios for everything. Why is this any different? And if your other country is playing war games that you're an adversarial force with, then what do we usually do? Play war games as well. If you're old enough to remember when Soviet Union was around, war games were happening all the time. We'd be right on the border close to them. They'd be right on the border close to us. And they'd be playing those games to try to see who's going to flinch.
In the air, on the sea, and underwater.
Yes.
Huge war games. Where there were loss of lives in submarines in the 70s, in the 60s, and the 80s. Now, I bring this up today. What do we got, about 13 more minutes? We can do this. I can do this. You can do it. He, she, and it can do it. Now you understand why the release of that Atlantic article about President Trump calling military members losers and suckers.
Which has yet to be validated by anybody who was there.
To be validated.
But it doesn't matter when you're the Atlantic.
No, and that's why that emerged. So I'm telling you folks, the reason I did this tonight with myself and Sackhead Sean is for you to understand the linkage between the military, why that article was released, and the plans for the future in November 3rd. Don't think that it can't get this terribly Byzantine and Machiavellian. Look at 2020.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
And by the way, Bobby Henline, who is the injured Marine he was the only one to suffer the IED attack in Iraq. And you know who he is. He's got significant injuries to his body. And I said Marine, he's in the Army. Significant injuries to his body. He was a staff sergeant. He's been around doing numerous appearances. He's actually a stand-up comedian now. He's come out and said that he was pissed off that he was used as a prop in an anti-Trump propaganda, because his picture was the one that was one of the things in the Atlantic.
Okay, and let me remind everybody, you can't miss him because he's the guy that had his face essentially burned off by an IED. If you go to social media, Facebook, Twitter, you'll find that video that I'm sure you're referring to, where he's saying, you used me. That's not me endorsing that at all.
Yep. And because it was a photo taken at a public event at the White House, it's considered a government event, and therefore it can be used by anyone. He can't even sue for libel or for defamation, because it's a lot different when you're in a uniformed member of the military. You don't have the same rights as, say, the Covington kids.
Well, as you pointed out, and Dave in chat also points out, John Bolton and Donald John Trump, not the best of buddies.
Look, if this was a chance for Bolton to slam Trump, he would have come out and said
he would have said it, but he was one of the numerous people who have since come out and said, essentially, okay, this is bullshit.
Yep. But here's the problem, too, and I've said this before. Here's the problem when you don't have a bottom line for freedom of the press. So, and this is always, and again, we're press. We have a hard time with this. But when you have a press who is blatantly lying, and there's no repercussions because it is against a president who he can't sue you, he can't do anything for you. There's no instrument to punish you other than the American people turning you off or shutting your website down. Like literally not going to it, not actually government shutting it down. And this is the danger of a free press, and this is what happens when we as a nation allow, Trump will call it fake news, I call it radical news, to run wild for years under an Obama administration unchecked. And people keep clicking over and be like, well, I want to know what CNN says about this. Well, it's going to be bullshit and a lie. Shut them off. Because if there's nobody to advertise to, they don't exist.
No, that's very true. And their ratings are crap.
Yeah, make it more crap.
Well, speaking of crap, I don't know why this popped into my brain.
I thought you had to take a break.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Guess who's coming to MSNBC?
Who?
Shepard Smith.
Oh.
The loser from Fox News at noon.
Most people, God, I remember when Shepard Smith was actually new and enjoyable. When he was young, before he got opinionated, became an opinionated reporter, and was just a news anchor, he was actually a good anchor. And then he all of a sudden became big enough and popular enough, which they all do, and think, you know what? My opinion needs to be interjected into this news artifact.
It's like the Sacramento Bee. The Sacramento Bee isn't news. The Sacramento Bee is
all
opinion.
Yep. That about the news.
Crafted to make you think that it's news, when in fact it's not the opinion page. The opinion page is the op-ed page. Every article is an extension of the op-ed page.
And I say this all the time. On Fox News, you know who the news people are? Even on Fox. The news people are the one who butts in for 3 minutes in between shows and say, hi, I'm so-and-so, here's what's going on in the world.
Exactly.
Everybody else's opinion. But they're not shy about it. They tell you it's opinion. You know, Tucker Carlson, who I have great respect for, but he's an opinion show. He has a lot of historical facts on his side, but you're getting his opinion and the opinions of his writers most of the time. But they don't make any bones about that.
No, and neither does Hannity.
Whereas CNN, MSNBC, Sleaze, and all the other ones, they tried to, you know, Brian Williams is back on MSNBC. Remember Brian Williams, folks?
Oh, Jesus.
So that was my little tirade about why freedom of the press is dangerous and why we, the people, are responsible for the way the press is today, because we were not vanguarding against them.
Okay, and again, this is why I indicated the linkage between the military.
Mm-hmm.
The Atlantic article came out, and I think it was Jonah Goldberg. I might have to look at that, but I think that's who wrote the piece for the Atlantic. If it isn't, I apologize to Jonah, but I think it is. Saying that Trump said the military consists of losers and suckers, and that's why it emerged to try to give our military more reason to move against President Trump, as that article that I read here, The Coming Coup by Michael Anton, as this article illustrated. This is why it's all important. This is why it's an informed electorate is a much better electorate, but it's also a very dangerous electorate. The American media maggots, as I call them, cannot afford to have you be an informed electorate.
Well, and this could also be why John Bolton and other people, especially John Bolton, who's had a lot of time on the inside, was honest about the fact that he's never heard the president say it and did not hear the president say it, because he may very well know the potential risk versus like getting a chance to slam Trump and, oh, well, there could be repercussions on the other side of the election if I go along with this. And if that was the case, if that was Bolton's thought process, I give him a lot of credit, because he didn't take the personal hit him low. He went with the country hit him high, and he put his politics aside, which you got to give him a little bit of credit for that, because he had every chance. He wrote a book to slam Trump. He's done all these things to slam Trump.
Exactly.
Right. So the fact that he didn't say that, and if he understands, which I'm sure he does, the war game scenario and all the other stuff and what could possibly happen, then I give Bolton credit. And I know there are a lot of people like, he's a piece of shit. I'm not saying he's not, but I give him credit. You know, even a clock is right. Broken clock's right twice a day. So
let me see if I'm pulling the information out of what you just said accurately, and you correct me. If this had already occurred because of the nature of John Bolton, he would have put it in his damn book.
Yes, it would have happened. Any chance he got to slam Trump?
Sure, to send a broadside over his bow? Hell yeah, he would have done it.
And again, why is all this coming out now? You start looking, and by the way, we still as a nation are ignoring the fact that 69 kids were rescued 2 weeks ago from sex trafficking. And all
by
the
US
pedophile
Marshals.
talks and all that.
Right.
So let's forget that that's going on for a minute. Here's the problem, and I said this earlier. You have a scared group of Democrats who know, unleash Trump for 4 years. If he wins again, look, if you already think the guy doesn't give a shit, the guy he's really not going to give a shit.
In his second 4 years,
it'll be beautiful.
If you ever wondered what the hell a lame duck president was, you're going to experience
full force
the beautiful nature of the mightiest of lame duck presidents who will not give one crap about what he does.
I say there's no less than 5 Supreme Court cases in the next 4 years over a decision that he made.
God.
But why are they so worried about that? Well, because Trump showed you that you don't need to be a politician to be president. Even Ronald Reagan was governor.
And it's better if you're not.
Even Ronald Reagan was a governor before he was president, right? Trump was a business person / celebrity, and he was a celebrity, who became president and has 0 fucks to give. What is that? That is a threat to all of the entrenched political hacks who occupy Washington on the right and the left, and not just elected officials. All the people who are working in and around them, advisors, associates, that, lawyers, and lobbyists. Trump is a threat to all of them. When we talk
everything.
About the drain,
cut
the swamp,
the cash cow.
Yep, and that's what they want back. They want their power back, their slice back. How do you do that? You install a Joe Biden who's going to retire after a year, and then a Kamala Harris.
If he makes it to a year.
Yeah, he'll make it to a year. You won't see him for the last 6 months. But so that's what this whole thing is about. This whole election is about the fact that they don't want the American people, the average American person, to go, well, maybe I could run for president.
Or
I could run for mayor.
Could you say
I could be a city councilman.
The corollary to all of that could be, look at all the stuff we didn't know and wouldn't have known
if it wasn't for Trump.
If it wasn't for Trump being in there right now. And this, of course, is CNN.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
Yeah, CNN is the
most trusted name in sleaze.
News.
But that's what they're afraid of. Look, politicians don't want you to become a politician. They want you to sit back and think that everything's hunky-dory, the world's fine, and just be fat, dumb, and stupid and collect your check, however you get it. If you're one of the working ones, they think you're a big sucker. And if you're one of the ones who are on public welfare, well, they think you're a useful idiot. But they don't respect you, by and large. Politicians don't want you to run against them, as much as they all say in every campaign speech when they're arguing with somebody, well, if you don't like it, you should run. They don't want that. Because if more and more average people start infiltrating city government, state government, like Eric here just an hour earlier, you get somebody like an Eric who's not a career politician.
Oh, no.
But somebody who's driven,
He's
smart,
just a good dude that wants to do good.
Has a big heart and actually wants a positive change for his community. You start getting more people like that. And as we talked about, as this country migrates grossly from the coast to the middle and everything changes with social distance, that's a different show. You're going to have now more cities start popping up. Population places will change. Electoral votes will change. Gerrymandering is going to occur. All this other stuff. They need to be out ahead of this and hold as much power prior to that so they can retain it after the fact. The last thing they want is the average American person realizing that politicians are just useless minions who are sent to Washington, who are supposed to answer to the people and not the other way around.
They can't afford to have you really
think
woke.
Yep.
This, I think, typifies it all. This is from Blazing Saddles.
Holy underwear! Sheriff murdered, innocent women and children blown to bits. We've got to protect our phony baloney job, gentlemen. We must do something about this immediately. Immediately. I didn't get a harumph out of that guy.
Give the governor a harumph.
You watch your ass. It's my favorite movie of all time. My favorite movie of all time. Gene Wilder and Cleveland Little were absolutely amazing.
A movie you couldn't make in 2020.
Look,
can you imagine if you tried to remake Blazing Saddles in 2020?
Look, it's Hedy Lamarr. It's Headley.
Headley.
How do you do such amazing stunts with such little feet? It's just, if you haven't ever watched the movie, you need to watch it.
They were talking about wargaming. Mm-hmm. In one scenario, John Podesta, the former chair of Hillary Clinton.
That's what would happen if Hillary and Mitt
played
had a baby.
Joe Biden, and the result, one of a few results was, and they weren't kidding when they said this and wrote it up, the secession of the states on the entire West Coast, followed by the intervention of U.S. armed forces.
Yes.
That's what they're pushing. And it's out in front of God and everybody.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
To look at and see.
And look, I don't call for insurrection. I don't call for any sort of use of armed forces against government.
There's action, reaction.
But, yeah.
Don't expect us to not
You can't have a plan.
react.
You can't have a plan against us and expect us not to formulate a plan against you or discuss it at the very least.
It's as simple as that.
And here's, my final thoughts on this. The military will never go for it. You may have the upper brass, but here's the thing. Who can fire the chief of staff like that? The president.
Yeah.
And if they say, well, I'm not going to listen, if the command staff under them says, well, no, he's the president, who has more of an influence over what the troops do? It may not be the top command staff, it may be the top command staff who are super duper uber leftists, but it will be the line leaders who will be making the decision about what the military does. They can get orders all they want, but if it's unconstitutional, well, that changes everything.
Here's
and by the way, it just one last. I know I said that already. We look around at all these protests and everything, and we're like, that's the left will say that's angry people and they're protesting this and protesting that and equality, this, that, and the other thing. If the Democrats pull this shit, the amount of people that will take to the streets in the name of the Constitution will be, and I'm not calling for it. I'm not telling you what to do, and I'm not saying I want this to happen because I don't. I want everything to be how it should be. But the amount of people who will take to the streets, good luck getting the 82nd Airborne into the White House. Because look, you push the American people too far, they're going to push back. The 82nd Airborne is going to show up at the gate in their trucks, and there's going to be 600, 700, 800 armed Americans sitting there going, yeah, this isn't happening.
Yeah. If you want Americans' blood to run in the street, go ahead.
Supreme Court needs to rule on this before anything happens. And it'll happen. And I'm not saying, look, we've seen it start slowly. The potential is there. The Democrats do not want to push the American people past their breaking point. The problem is they don't know what the breaking point is. They're about to poke a bear who's been sleeping.
Yeah. Don't poke the bear.
Stupid.
Oh, I should also remind everybody that in 2020, some of the best salespeople for firearms on the entire planet
were leftists.
Have been the Demorats.
Look,
Thank you very much. There are more guns sold in the first half of 2020 than any other year.
If I was the NRA, I would give Beto O'Rourke
an award.
The Bundsman to Firearm Ownership Lifetime Achievement Award, something like that.
Yeah, for gun sales.
Yeah, and invite him. Just be like, hey, you've done more for firearm awareness than we could ever do. Thank you.
Oh yeah,
thank you,
appreciate
Beto.
that. Okay, I'm going to be back on Thursday. I don't know who my guest is. I'm going to try to see. Oh damn it! HP Pundit Dan is gone. I tried to see if I could get Dan for the Thursday show. I didn't
even know Dan was there.
Show.
So
yeah, he was there in chat there for a second. So I was going to try to get Dan, but he's gone. Anyway, between now and next week, Folks, go look at this movie called Executive Action and watch that. And then there's another great movie with Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas, 7 Days in May. Go watch that one, too.
And Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Huh, that wouldn't be bad.
Just saying.
Try to think of another one where something similar occurred. I can't. Those are my two. Those are my two that just came to my wheelhouse right there. Okay, well that's it. We're 5 minutes into overtime. Just like you said earlier tonight, I never do overtime, and I never go long.
Nor would you.
No, nor would I. Okay, well.
Monsieur has unlocked!
From one of my all-time favorite movies, Dr. Strangelove. Oh, Lordy. Stanley Kubrick was a genius when he did this.
Yeah, well, and Peter Sellers was...
played 3 parts in the movie. 4 parts.
Yeah, I was going to say, was it only 3? I thought it was 4.
Yeah. He was originally going to be the B-52 bomber pilot.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then they decided, no, I think he's busy enough. Let's go get Slim Pickens.
Well, Slim Pickens was amazing. Blazing Saddles as well.
Oh, God, yes.
Taggart.
Anyway, I'll be back Thursday. Don't know what I'm going to have yet.
There's enough news out there.
Oh, God, yes. I'll find something. So thanks to ERIC RIGARD for being here. Thanks to you for being here. Hey, you going to be around Thursday night?
I don't know yet.
Okay. Well, we'll leave that up in the air, too.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So in the meantime, have a great Wednesday. Tomorrow is trash day for me, so I got to put the trash out. And then I hope when I go outside that I can chew my way through the air to get to my car.
Bring a samurai sword, slice right through it.
Holy mother of God.
Yeah.
ERIC RIGARD, thanks for being here tonight in the first hour. God bless you, sir.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.